to Java Junkies. Today we're talking about Nguyen Coffee Supply TrueGrit. Now this is a 100% Peaberry Robusta, and we tried their 100% Arabica last week, and I was really excited to try the Robusta because I don't think I've had a lot of Robusta coffee. And this is 100% Peaberry Robusta. The tasting notes they give are scotch, grapefruit zest, and bitter melon. Now it's interesting they say scotch because, like, what kind of scotch? Like, is it an Isla scotch, a Speyside scotch, a Highland scotch, you know? And there's so many notes to scotch and such a breadth of flavor, and maybe they mean that Isla, like, kind of smoky note from peated scotch. We'll see, you know, see if we get a scotch. It's kind of funny though, because in the whiskey drinking community, they often give tasting notes like, oh, this tastes like coffee, or this has the note of tobacco. And then if you go into the coffee drinking world, you're like, well, what kind of coffee is in that whiskey? And in the tobacco world, they're like, what kind of tobacco? So it's just really funny that they say scotch, because we do the same thing in the whiskey community, and we say coffee, and, like, yeah, there's so many different kinds of coffee. Now, a little bit about Nguyen Coffee Supply. It was started by a first-generation Vietnamese-American woman named Sarah Nguyen. They grow it in Vietnam, but they roast it in Brooklyn, and they call this one TrueGrit. And they don't give a roasting date. I'll link to their website on where you can buy it, but this is their strongest coffee, and they do have some information on it about Robusta beans, because Robusta beans have nearly 2 times more caffeine than Arabica beans, and they have 60% less sugar and fats than Arabica beans. So I'm excited to try it for my first time. Now, we're not using a Phin filter today, the metal filter they use for Vietnamese coffee, and it's not the Vietnamese coffee recipe with condensed milk and everything. It's we're just beans grown in Vietnam for Vietnamese coffee, and we're doing a V60 pour over with a reusable metal filter. All right, let's get that first whiff. It's much heavier than their Arabica beans. Less of a woody note and more of a deep chocolate. Almost smells medium to dark roast, even though, like, their last 100% Arabica roast was definitely medium to light. It was much lighter. Yeah, heavy notes. I could see scotch on the nose too, if it were maybe more of a caramel scotch, a Speyside, or something heavy, Highland. But very nice. While they do seem darker than the Arabica beans, they are also very chalky and, like, muted colors, kind of a faded brown. They're not as bright and vibrant, but they're not like shiny dark roast beans. They're just very powdery and chalky. All right, we ground them up, and let's see what opens up. Very unique and unusual. It smells kind of like the wet cat food. It has a cat food note. It's like actually, I think what I'm getting is tuna. It smells like tuna. So like a tuna cat food, or a canned tuna you would get to make casserole or something. Yeah, it's definitely a heavy tuna note. Maybe some dustiness, spicy, like a pepper. Mainly I'm just getting that tuna note. Not a lot else. But it's actually really savory and pleasant. Alright, we've heated our water up to 205 in our fellow, and we're ready for 4 tablespoons of coffee. blooms really nicely, like more so than Arabica beans. They just really swells and enlarges. Ah, that brew stink. It's reminds me of uh, a little bit of sawdust with steamed vegetables, maybe broccoli. Steamed carrots has that kind of taste of cooked carrots. Yeah, just mixed vegetables, some cauliflower. It definitely reminds me of that on the brewing smell. Ooh, now I'm getting a beef stew, like the slow cooked beef in like a crock pot. That yeah, it's very savory, very salty. Definitely smells like beef stew. Very peppery. Just a lot of spices, maybe a little cayenne pepper, just all cooked with the beef with onions and everything. It's beef stew. Reminds me of my youth. I'm vegan now, so I don't really like beef or anything like that. I don't eat meat, but it does smell very pleasant. Now, as it continues to brew, it starts to smell more earthy, like soil, and has kind of a very familiar fragrance. Like I used to go to this church when I was little, back when I was Christian, and the basement for potlucks always smelled like this, like the chili, maybe the spice they use in chili. It smells like old fabric, like aging fabric. Like if you go into a costume shop or yeah, being in drama as a kid and going into the different costumes they kept for years, it smells like that aging fabric. Definitely brings back memories. Doing the brew dance. Alright, Nguyen Coffee Supply TrueGrit. Let's see how it smells. Very much that vegetal note. This Robusta is really interesting because I'm not really getting any chocolate, no nuttiness. I'm not even getting fruit. It's just a unique scent to me. There's maybe some cocoa powder notes. Huh. Now their tasting notes, not necessarily their nosy notes, but their tasting notes are Scotch, grapefruit zest, and bitter melon. So let's see if we get any of that on here. I definitely get that grapefruit zest. That kind of it's like a dryness. It's a very dry cup of coffee. I suppose I do get that bitter melon as well. Very much. The finish is very much after you finish some grapefruit, and you just have that dry acidic feeling. It's not necessarily acidic. It just doesn't taste like it. Now, I could see Scotch, It has kind of an Isla Scotch note, but without the smoke surrounding it, kind of like Brook Lattie's, the classic latte, except not as sweet. Maybe a hint of dark chocolate. Yeah, I'm starting to get more of that dark chocolate taste. Very bitter. But a pleasant kind of bitter. It's not like that dirty kind of Starbucks taste. It's very bright and lively and very refreshing. Let's let it sit a bit and then come back to it. All right, let's come back to it. It's very unusual, this 100% Peaberry Robusta, because out of any coffee I've had, coffee always, kind of dehydrates you and makes you thirsty and you gotta drink some water. But, or you should drink some water with your coffee. This is just the most dry cup of coffee I've ever had. It really like sucks the air out of you. Like it sucks the liquid out of your mouth. I definitely need a glass of water. I'm really thirsty. Overall, it's very pleasant. It's the kind of coffee you'd want to have with like a cranberry scone or something. Just a very casual, like you're hanging out with friends. You want to have a fancy, nice cup of coffee at a nice coffee shop. It's definitely got that feel, that nostalgia. It's very pleasant. Not my favorite cup of coffee. I think I like the Arabica a little bit better. But for my first round of straight up Robusta, it was actually really pleasant, and I'm very impressed with Nguyen so far. That's it for Java Junkies. Next week we're trying their 50-50 blend of Arabica and Robusta beans from Vietnam. It's Nguyen Coffee Supply. I'll link to their website in the description where you can buy. They've got a bunch of great stuff like Fiend filters and nice sets. You can get their trio of coffee at once together. It's a good price, and they have some discounts on there. And then they send you a postcard. At least they sent me a postcard that had various discounts on it if you want to order some more. And I'll definitely use that to get some Fiend filters and try it out for the show. Join us next week for more Nguyen Coffee Supply. We're gonna try some cool stuff. All right, like, share, and subscribe.